Modern movies. Movies have been coming out for a long time now, with the first movie coming out in the late 1800s, and over time, movies have improved to have better writing, better storytelling, better visuals, and hopefully be cheaper. And as time goes on, you would expect new movies to keep improving on every single front, especially with how much money these companies are making from some of these movies. And one of the best examples of this were the older Marvel films. These movies, especially Infinity War, it's crazy to say that's an older movie now, made a lot of money because they spent a lot of money and time into making a good movie. How it normally goes, or how it should go, a good movie equals a shit ton of money for the company, and a shit ton of money and time from the company should equal a good movie. And I know not all movies have to have a insane budget to be good. I'm talking about big companies that are no stranger to spending tons and tons of money on movies, and now they're just making overpriced, boring movies that no one cares to go see. The new Sonyverse movies, and I'm not talking about like the Spider-Verse, those movies are great. I'm talking about like the villain movies that they've been making recently. They suck. They are all really big flops. Madam Web is easily one of the worst movies of the year, and probably one of the worst superhero movies, if not the worst superhero movie of all time. Same goes for Morbius, which came out a couple years ago, and Kraven the Hunter is now their newest movie. That's not looking too good either. But these movies all do the same exact thing. Spend millions, write a boring movie, hope and pray the diehard Marvel, Spider-Man fans tune in to watch, and then rinse and repeat when that doesn't work. And that's exactly what happens. These are, again, some of the biggest flops. I don't think any one of them has made money, made profit, and I don't even think it's even close, at least from what I've seen. If I remember correctly, Morbius tried to re-release and made like $70,000 in a second release. It was honestly just it was embarrassing. But there is another person that does have them beat, and I would honestly have to say that's none other than Disney. Disney has not been doing the best recently, especially with their Marvel side of things. After Endgame, a lot of those movies that came out were very mediocre. You know, some were still good, but I don't even think, like, they're not even good compared to how they were before. For example, Thor Love and Thunder, the Ant-Man movie, or Ant-Man, whatever it was, Doctor Strange 2, were not good, but the biggest problem for them now is they're just not spending a lot of time on their movies anymore. At least, not enough. Compared to the other phases of Marvel, their newer ones have a lot more content, which isn't bad on paper, but that's when you have to realize when there's a lot more content, you're making sacrifices like things on writing, CG, which is a very big criticism for newer Marvel films now, that sometimes the CG doesn't hold up because guess what? They're not giving their artists time to do their best work. The two Spider-Verse movies are honestly like a perfect example for this. They didn't have a absolutely like insane budget. It was 5 years in the making, but look at how good that movie is. There's not like a single pitfall of those films. But to be honest, Marvel is where Disney is succeeding at the most right now. The hype for their original things are completely done. They killed off basically all interest in Star Wars, at least for me. But where they're really failing at is their original content. Remakes and reboots are not a thing that are new by any means. For example, there are 3 Spider-Man trilogies, but Disney in recent years has just moved to remaking a lot of their older movies, but in live action instead of the 2D animation that they were originally in. For example, Lion King, The Jungle Book, which the Jungle Book live action is actually, I thought it was pretty good, honestly. The Little Mermaid, and I think now they're in the works of Snow White and Lilo and Stitch, and to me it's just, why? Yes, I know it's easier said than done to come up with a whole entire new idea, but you're Disney at the end of the day. When you're the size of Disney, there really is no excuse to not be able to make new movies that are new and original. And I would like to think that the target audience for these movies would be newer generations of kids, but I just don't even see that happening. Like, brain rot on the internet, they're not going to see the new Lion King. That's just, unless they're forced to. That's just not how, that's not happening. It's just not happening. I want to talk about another company for a second, and that's Dreamworks. Dreamworks has had very, very good movies like Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon. I know they've had others, but those are the two that I'm going to be talking about for a little bit. Both of them are literally some of my favorite, I guess, franchises that I've watched as a kid. I thought both of them were done. I thought they were just going to let them both not die, but let them go out on a high note. But no, Kung Fu Panda had a fourth movie that came out not too long ago, and the fourth movie was easily the worst. I don't even need to see the movie, which I did not, to know that that movie was the worst. I thought the third movie was the conclusion, and it was a good movie. I thought it was a very good way to end the franchise on. But no, this movie, it was just pointless. It was a pointless movie to be made. Kung Fu Panda, I would honestly have to say, has some of the best villains ever. Honestly, the three of them are all so cool. And clearly Dreamworks thought the same exact thing, because the villain in this movie is a chameleon who just copies the powers of the other villains. So interesting, right? And on top of that, just did some questionable story decisions. It's just sad to see, because this is now the ending to a otherwise great series, and they just, I don't know, it's not that they ruined it. I don't even think a lot of people even cared about this movie, just because I feel like everybody knew it was just kind of going to be meh, so nobody cared about it. In my mind, it's not even a canon movie. It doesn't exist. But How to Train Your Dragon, they're doing a live action remake. Woo. I slightly understand remaking movies like The Lion King, since it's 30 years old. Snow White also. I understand it even more since it came out in the 1930s, but there's also been multiple remakes of that already. But How to Train Your Dragon came out in 2010. At least the first one came out in 2010. Yes, it's almost 15 years old now, which is insane to think about, but I don't even think it's not old enough to justify a remake, at least in my opinion. And it looks like they're going the Disney route, and they're just doing shot for shot remake, just live action with a new cast. And I don't know, it just seems like another pointless cash grab thing from this company. Is it going to be good? Probably, just because it's a direct copy just with new characters, unless the characters are what makes it bad. So it's not like it's gonna be like an awful movie. It's just like every other live action, kind of pointless. And yes, I know there's a lot of movies that I didn't talk about that are good, and there are other bad movies that came out this year. I'm honestly kind of just talking about like the superhero, like these types of movies that are just being remade. I think, and at this point, that's like the biggest problem with movies, is that they're just not original anymore. But that is all I had for today. I hope next year's movies take more time into making a good and original movie that's not a remake, not an unneeded sequel, and not an overpriced cash grab like we've had recently. I hope you guys all enjoyed again. Peace.